So, let's talk about how we get data. We collect data during what is called fieldwork. Fieldwork involves gaining access to activities and phenomena that you are interested in, and there are different methods of doing so. You don't have to be physically in the field to do fieldwork. When you go into the field, whether you are doing so physically or via your computer, you already should have your plan of data collection worked out. In other words, you should already know what you'll be doing and how. This is the information you planned for when you designed your study. Specifically, in designing your study, you already determined what will count as your data, what you will be collecting. While the practicalities of the fieldwork may affect some of what you do and even change it a bit, you will go into your data collection planning to collect specific information, be it exact talk, text excerpts, opinions via surveys, and so on. Another important component of your fieldwork is positioning. How you position yourself with respect to your data and the participants is an important aspect of power relations. This is also something you should have planned for in your study design, but it is never too late to revisit the issue of positioning. Are you going to be an insider to the community you are investigating, or an outsider? Are you going to be an observer from the sidelines, a participant observer, or an anonymous researcher? If you are collecting qualitative data, are you going to be the expert or the learner, with your participants serving as expert informants? These are important factors that will affect what you are going to be able to collect. Finally, your research design plan should have stipulated how you are going to document your data: notes, audio recording, video recording. The format of the documentation will affect how you are able to code the data and represent it for the analysis. I want to stress extremely strenuously that you must not record your participants' speech or writing without their prior explicit consent. Not only is it highly unethical, but it is also illegal in California. Any consent for recording must be obtained before the recording is started, not after. Now let's talk about the first method of data collection you may use: observation. Observation is used when we want to find out what people do and how they do it. There are two broad types of observation: participant and non-participant. Participant observation takes place when the researcher themselves is involved in the community they're observing. And yes, I'm using the singular they and will continue to do so. As a professor of linguistics, I formally declare it not to be bad grammar, but the appropriate use of this pronoun to refer to people of any gender on the gender continuum. Anyway, like with any method of data collection and later analysis, observation has its pros and cons. One definite plus of being a participant observer is that you, as a researcher, get the insider perspective on the phenomena you are studying. You get to see how the members of the community themselves construct and make meaning of their worlds, including language use. This is called the ethnomethodological perspective. Observation can also have some disadvantages, not the least of which is the difficulty in stepping out of one's role as a member of the community and into the role of the observer. It is hard to see the phenomena in question objectively, or even see them at all, because as an insider, the researcher is in the midst of these phenomena. It is hard to see what people do and how they do it if you yourself are doing those things as part of the norm, part of your habitus. To use a metaphor, participant observation can be as hard as it is for a fish to see that it is wet, since the fish doesn't have the concept of dryness or of being anything other than wet. Only those who do have such concepts can perceive the fish as wet. For the fish, it is just being, existing in the world as it knows it. Non-participant observation takes place when the observer is not a member of the community, or may not be even there. For example, if I observe classroom practices by coming to classes and sitting in the back and taking notes, I am not participating in the classroom community. Or if I do not even show up, but rather set up a video camera and mic the students and the teachers, and then analyze what I see and hear on the recordings, I am not a participant observer by a long shot. In both cases, I am certainly an observer. I just do not participate. The advantage of non-participant observation is that as a researcher, you can notice the phenomena that you, as an outsider, see as quote unquote strange, odd, or environment specific. You can analyze them and comment on them from an ethic perspective, identifying specific elements and actions that, had you been a participant, you may not have noticed at all. The disadvantage, because no method is without those, is that it is hard to understand the intricacies of a phenomenon, to see its organizing principles and motivations, and to avoid judgment when you're not the member of the group you're observing. The best combination of observations is that when the researchers can combine the insider and outsider perspectives, and that is where teamwork in research is highly beneficial. Now that I've touched upon the issue of recording your data earlier, let's look at it closer, since you may need, if you are able, to record your data either on video or on audio, or at least in the notes. Capturing the phenomena you are studying on audio or video is extremely useful because while spoken interactions are fleeting and you can pay attention to only some things and not others, recording allows you to revisit the situation and reobserve it from the detached or etic perspective. Having your phenomena on tape, so to say, well, in the digital format in the 21st century, allows you to shift the foci of your investigation. You can look at the big picture, or you can focus on the most minute phenomena, from a larger discursive organization to even how interruptions are managed in conversations on the minute level. And looking at your data again and again, transcribing it, rewatching it, and re-listening to it provides for multiple opportunities to discover patterns. Let me give you an example. In ancient times, when I was a doctoral student collecting data for my dissertation, I observed twice weekly classes for 11 months, week in and week out. While I noticed some patterns, the most jarring of them jumped out at me once I started to transcribe my videos, which required watching them multiple times. It is only then that I noticed how the teacher's bodily movements interacted with her speech to socialize the students into understanding how they need to present their knowledge in words. It was eye-opening, but I didn't even notice that during my actual in-person observations. Recordings can also be supplemented by field notes, whether these are taken during the observation or shortly after. But, and you knew about what's coming, didn't you? We legally and ethically cannot record other people without their explicit consent. No candid camera shots or surreptitious audio recordings on your phone, please, or you'll be in violation of the California Penal Code. Do not do it. But even if you have gotten the participant's consent for recording, please keep in mind that even the placement of the camera or your phone constitutes a form of analysis. For example, in my dissertation, I looked at the teacher's practices, so I placed the camera at the back of the classroom and aimed it at the front, where the teacher was likely to be. This, of course, means that I missed most of the students' interactions with each other. A deliberate choice as it was, I wish I had several cameras to capture the classroom from multiple angles, which would have made my data richer. So, to make a long story short, make sure you place your camera or audio recording equipment in such a way that you can capture what you need to capture. Finally, good recording, and I don't mean from the artistic point of view, but from the point of view of the data usability, takes practice. Ambient noise, lighting, speaker's volume, all can contribute to the recording's quality and your ability to transcribe and analyze it. Okay, so we've been talking about observation quite a bit. Let's take a little break and then resume with part 2 of this lecture, in which we will cover elicitation methods of data collection.